amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 58, printed in Part A of House Report number 118-261, offered by Mr. Westerman of Arkansas.
Pursuant to House Resolution 838, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman, and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arkansas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield myself as much time as I may consume. I want to start by thanking the chair of the subcommittee for the great work that they did on this bill and for working with us on so many issues. And I have one little adjustment I would like to make that I think would make the bill even better. And I rise in support of my amendment, which would reduce funding for the Council on Environmental Quality from the 2023 level of $3,750,000 to its currently authorized level of $1 million for fiscal year 2024. While I do, again, appreciate the Appropriation Committee's efforts to reduce funding for this account by $926,000 from fiscal year 2023 levels, as well as rescind the $62.5 million of funds made available to CEQ by the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, it is my belief that Congress must go further to hold CEQ accountable for their actions. I'm deeply concerned by CEQ's lack of accountability to congressional oversight, their unwillingness to answer basic questions or even answer a letter in a timely manner. Congressional hearings and letters of inquiry are important tools which elected representatives use to engage directly with administration officials to conduct oversight on policy objectives, openly debate legislation, and spotlight waste, fraud, and abuse occurring in government. These officials have an obligation to be responsive to Congress, engage in the oversight process, and be accountable to the American people. However, on 3 separate occasions just this year, CEQ Chair Brenda Mallory has refused to testify before the Committee on Natural Resources. In addition, Chair Mallory's staff, in written emails from just a few months ago, actually questioned the precedent and need for congressional oversight hearings. CEQ has also failed to respond to basic document production request letters, most recently missing yet another deadline on Monday, October 31st, for a second request for a production of documents. I would like to note for the record that we are not the only committee experiencing frustration with CEQ, and the specific issues we've been seeking answers on since June, well, let's just say that we're not alone in this endeavor. This type of behavior from political appointees in the executive branch is unacceptable and must not be allowed to continue. Mr. Chair, I come before you today to provide solutions. Working hard in hand with the Appropriations Committee and through the appropriations process, Republicans and Democrats alike should support a reduction in funding to agency and agency heads who refuse to comply with congressional oversight. One of the hearings where Chair Mallory refused to appear, the hearing focused on CEQ's proposed changes to NEPA. These proposed changes have far-reaching impacts and affect countless stakeholders, which would make one think that oversight and transparency would be a high priority for CEQ. To make matters worse, the changes CEQ is proposing to NEPA stand to increase permitting timelines for all kinds of projects, including energy and infrastructure, and ignore significant changes to the NEPA statute made in the Bipartisan Fiscal Responsibility Act. Some of my colleagues here today might be concerned about the level of funding that is provided by my amendment to CEQ for staffing at the $1 million level. However, the Council is well equipped to function on a much smaller budget, as they have the authority under statute not only to work with outside NGOs, but also to detail employees from across the government to their staff without impacting their budget. I'd like to further emphasize this point. CEQ's governing statute actually encourages the Council to work with public organizations, meaning federal, state, and local governments, as well as nonprofits, to save money on employees. So why don't we adhere to what the law says? To recap, my amendment holds up Congress's end of the bargain by providing CEQ with its authorized amount for operations of $1 million for fiscal year 2024 and not $1 more. Should the Council wish to discuss this matter with Congress, it would be my suggestion that Chair Mallory and her staff become more responsive to our questions and requests for routine oversight. My amendment would send a clear message to the administration that disregard for congressional oversight and the American people is unacceptable. For this reason, I urge my colleagues in joining me in supporting this amendment, and I reserve.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Maine seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I claim time in opposition to this amendment.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Chair, Pretty sure this is deja vu all over again. I think we've already had an amendment to cut or eliminate the Council on Environmental Quality. This one does by cutting it 36%. This office is responsible for coordinating the federal government's efforts to improve, preserve, and protect Americans' public health and environment. It also works to ensure that environmental reviews for infrastructure projects and federal actions are thorough, efficient, and reflect the input of the public and local communities. This amendment would hobble the office, result in significant delays to the very important infrastructure projects going across this country, and we have debated this once already. This was a bad amendment then, it's a bad amendment now. I oppose it, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just in closing, I'll say the only thing slowing down and providing blockades for projects across the country is CEQ and the influence they're having across other organizations. They're unresponsive to Congress. We should stand up for our Article I rights as members of Congress, cut their funding, and make them more responsive. I encourage my colleagues to support this amendment, and I yield back.